Is Hypixel Skyblock fixed? But what do I even mean by fixed? Well, I once saw a documentary on how metal plates were fixed. Absolutely riveting. About 2 weeks ago, there were some changes to Skyblock, I'm sure we're all aware. Recombobulators are now easier to drop. Scrolls are now easier to drop. Necron handles are now easier to drop. Scrolls are now more expensive to buy from chests. And the same goes for the handle too. Of course there are more changes. These changes are implemented in order to curb inflation. And I guess quote unquote fix the economy. Also not forgetting about them nerfing the prices of the crops to the NPC. Trying to incentivize people selling to the bazaar. Further trying to decrease inflation. The question facing a lot of Hypixel Skyblock players prior to the changes were, was this bad boy really worth 3 billion coins? And for the newer players who aspire to progress, how do I get 3 billion coins? Considering areas like the Crimson Isles and Kudra being considerably more difficult without a Hyperion, if not sometimes impossible, at some point through the progression of a Hypixel Skyblock player, a Hyperion is going to become necessary. Of course, this wasn't the only issue. Recombobulators spiked to over 15 million coins per, which is absolutely insanity. Warden Hearts were over 300 million coins. Overflux capacitors were over 200 million coins. Of course, now we basically just seen everyone killing Svens with magical damage, which is fair enough. Even booster cookies were over 10 million coins. It was evident that something was definitely going wrong and something had to be done to change. Items like scrolls were way over 500 million coins, causing them not really be able to be traded on the bazaar. People at that point were paying upwards of 700 to 800 million coins per scroll. Per scroll. You know, that's absolutely insane. Of course, this is much better now. Of course, on surface value, when looking at the prices prior to the changes compared to now, they look like they've, drastically dropped, and therefore, probably, really, the changes have worked. But is that 100% the case? Before we look into that any further, you should subscribe to the channel, become part of the 24%, there's really no reason not to. Also, you should join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of every single video. As I was saying, for certain items, these changes were really effective. For instance, recombobulators have pretty much halved in price. Even at this point, I'd say they're a little bit expensive, but they're about right. Booster cookies have come down around about 30 to 40%, which isn't too bad. Of course, the older Hypixel gets, there's going to be a bit of inflation anyway, and I don't think a booster cookie being 7 million coins is the end of the world. Still, maybe a little bit high, but, we can sort of manage. Of course, there wasn't any real changes implemented to decrease the price of booster cookies. But anyway, in terms of crops, let's say for instance, 1 carrot sells to the NPC for 3 coins. If we sell it to the bazaar, if we quick sell it, we lose coins and make 1.6. If we put an offer up, we'll make more coins than the NPC and get 3.2. So has this worked? Of the people who just want to quick sell, they're obviously going to go to the NPC, so I'm not convinced that this has actually worked. Of course, you can put an order up, and carrots are carrots, and they're going to be demanded all the time, and the orders will probably sell pretty much instantly. I still think it'd be nice to see if there was a minimum sell price implemented into the bazaar, so this change would actually properly work, so people could insta-sell to the bazaar and still actually make more coins than the NPC. Items like an overflux capacitor have reduced in price massively, not only because the average prices of everything else, also because the way that Sven's workers have now changed, like I mentioned before, considering they can now take magical damage, making them much quicker to kill. Items like the Warden Heart have dropped quite massively, considering everything else has dropped. This might also be down to the amount of Aatroxes we've had too. Obviously we had 3 Aatroxes in Jerry, we had an Aatrox before, an Aatrox after, and I think an Aatrox shortly before the one before as well. So yeah, anyway, 300 mil for a Warden Heart was too much. The Dark Claymore has dropped about 200 million coins in price, because now they're actually easier to drop and more expensive to buy. Just pretty much in a similar fashion to recombobulators, Necron sandals and scrolls. Now of course, one of the main objectives when these changes were implemented would have been to decrease the price of the Hyperion and everything else associated with it. Well, let's see how effective that has been. Like I said before, scrolls are now easier to drop, the chances are, higher to actually drop it. And also they're more expensive to buy out of the chests, making them less profit when you sell them. However, each scroll is around about 430 million coins, which to me is still an issue, considering you know, we'll look in a minute. A Necron sandal's around about 650 mil. So these 3 scrolls that you'd want to put in your Hyperion are double the price of a handle. And honestly, it's still not right at all. But prior to the changes, the scrolls were rarely on the bazaar. You know, the actual price of them is kind of hard to say, considering there's not really any record of how much they were selling for at that period of time. I'd say on average they may have dropped around about 200 million coins each. And as for the handle, it's dropped around about 100 million coins. Which just means for the handle alone and the 3 scrolls, you're already looking at around about 1.9 to 2 billion coins, plus everything else. Which says to me, in terms of the Hyperion, something else needs to be done, because yeah, the price has decreased by what, maybe 400 mil? 500 mil? But when you actually put it into perspective, that obviously that seems like a lot initially, but the weapon was almost like 3 billion coins, and now it's still well over 2 billion. And of course, if everybody had a Hyperion, I mean, that's not how anyone wants it to be. You know, you shouldn't be able to just buy a Hyperion as soon as you join the game. I'm not saying a Hyperion should be 200-300 mil. I'm not saying it should be below 1 billion. But realistically, I think for that price to be right, it probably needs to drop another like 500 mil at least. Like I was saying before, the Hyperion still content locks a lot of things, and people will argue against that, but it just realistically isn't true. Crimson Elves and Kudra, like I said, people are going to say it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory, but it's very difficult if you don't have it. Now we know the chances of the Necron's handle and scrolls and recombobulators for that case, but that seems to have done the job. Recombobulators, like the chances of dropping them now are way more likely than they were before, and this has worked perfectly. However, I really do think that these scrolls should be more common. I mean, the issue is evident. To fill a meter for a Necron sandal is 274k, and to fill a meter for a scroll is 205. The ratio's off, and it shows in the prices. If they kept the Necron's handle at this rarity, and put the scrolls down to like maybe a 120k meter, I really do think that would be more appropriate. Yes, the prices will drop, but that's what we want. The prices have dropped, but I don't think they've dropped enough, and I think that would probably solve a big issue. Yes, we'd see more people getting Hyperions, and probably earlier than they would now. But at least people will actually be able to play the game for what it is, in terms of being able to access content that they're currently just not really able to compete in. It's very easy for someone who already has a Hyperion, or already has higher tier weapons, or has a lot of coins at their disposal, or have just been playing the game for a while, so they have a progressed profile, to say that the prices and inflation in itself isn't an issue, because they see all of their items going up in value. But from the perspective of majority of Hypixel Skyblock players, I feel like some items are just still way too expensive in comparison to everything else. Anyway, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.